Hi, my name is SBorchardt, and I am going to present the first chapter in the book that we're reading. We are reading Troubled Water. The title to Chapter 1 is Welcome to Hoosick Falls. Hoosick Falls, New York is a small valley community between the Green and Adirondack Mountains with a population of approximately 3,500 as of 2010. You can see from this map, the pin here is northeast of Albany, and you can see the Green Mountains and the Adirondack Mountains, and it is in the greater Hudson Valley. Our story starts with Michael Hickey. He found it odd that his father, John, was diagnosed and died from kidney cancer at the age of 70. Although 70 is not young, it did seem early death for someone who had led a fairly healthy lifestyle and did not have a family history of cancer. Even more concerning to Michael was that in this town, his father was not alone in developing cancer, thyroid disease, and other fatal diseases at an early age without family history. After yet another early death of someone at the age of 48 in his town, and an offhand remark that there must be something in the water, Michael turned to Google and typed in Teflon and cancer. Now, the reason that he typed in Teflon is Hoosick Falls didn't suffer as much as other small towns like it when manufacturing companies moved overseas, because they had 11 Teflon manufacturing facilities that still called their small town home. Now, you probably associate Teflon with the non-stick coatings on pans. What you probably have not heard of is, and I'm going to have a hard time saying this, but I'll give it a shot, perfluorotanonic acid, let's just say PFOA. PFOA is the ingredient in Teflon that makes it both heat resistant and non-stick. PFOA is found everywhere. PFOA is used to make heat-resistant wires, ski wax, pizza boxes, microwave popcorn bags. It is an ingredient in Gore-Tex, which is used for outdoor gear and clothing. It's even in dental floss. Some Teflon factories, including the one upslope from Hoosick Falls, would burn their waste, and the almost indestructible PFOA particles would blanket the town in cinders. Then when it rained, the PFOA particles would seep into the ground and contaminate the source of the town's drinking water. Unlike many other contaminants, PFOA particles are not reduced with time or filtered out as they move through the soil, so they can travel great distances with the flow of the groundwater. The PFOA contamination is what likely caused John's cancer and the cancer of many of his neighbors. As you can see from this picture, you can see the plant here, and you can see the burning particles, and they float down to the ground. Then when it rains, they filter into the unsaturated zone and then down to the first aquifer. This is the aquifer where many people have their private wells. But this isn't just the story about John or just about his small town. It's about the many small rural communities that have lower education than their fellow citizens in larger cities. It's about big business taking advantage of those in need of good paying jobs to support their families, and who do not know the full ramifications of allowing large corporations to exploit their land and water. These corporations promise jobs in exchange for drilling, mining, and waste storing permits. CAFOs, tailing ponds, and fracking waste are just three of the current sources of water contamination, along with dump sites from chemical companies, both past and future. So going on, as I stated earlier, there are several current contaminants in the news. One of them is CAFOs. CAFOs are concentrated animal feeding operations. They're agricultural meat, dairy, or egg facilities where animals are kept and raised in confinement. Their waste is then spread on fields as fertilizer. The fertilizer then is allowed to seep into the ground or run off into nearby streams and lakes. You can see from this picture here, it's a picture of a tractor spreading manure. I have seen many of these tractors spreading manure on soils that are already saturated or are frozen. The waste has nowhere to go except for to run off into surface waters, lakes, and streams. The next thing we're going to look at is tailings. In mining, tails are the material left over after the process of separating the valuable fraction from the uneconomic fraction of an ore. Tailings can be dangerous sources of toxic chemicals such as heavy metals, sulfides, and radioactive content. These chemicals are especially dangerous when stored in ponds behind tailing dams. These ponds are also vulnerable to major breaches or leaks from dams, causing environmental disasters. And this information comes from Wikipedia. You can see in this picture here, there is a tailing pond, and around the tailing pond is a dam. And like I said, these dams can leak. You can also see that there is fresh water here. This source of fresh water is for the process of separating. So mines are usually located near freshwater sources, lakes or ponds, because like I said, they use this for separating. And what can happen is if these freshwater bodies were to flood, they're going to flood right into the tailing ponds. The fracking process uses an average of 45 million liters of water for a single horizontal well. According to the Groundwater Protection Council, the wastewater typically includes salts from dissolution of underlying rock and naturally occurring radioactive substances and chemicals added during the drilling and fracking process. It's unclear exactly how much produced water the fracking industry generates. It's also difficult to characterize the chemical composition of the produced water because of the many chemicals used in the fracking industry are preparatory, and the geology of the natural gas formations varies widely across the U.S. This picture here shows a fracking well. What we have is a vertical well and then a horizontal well. The whole thing is cased to protect the blue line here, the aquifer. Then there are holes produced in the casing. These are little explosive charges that are set off that not only put a hole in the casing, but also fracture the shale formation. The shale formation is where the natural gas is. So what they do next is they take the water slurry. It's water, it's sand, and it's chemicals. They force that into the well, and that goes into that fractured shale. Then they draw the contaminated water back out, but the sand stays behind. The sand stays in the cracks to allow the gas to come into the well. But like I said, the contaminated water is pulled out and then shipped away to be stored somewhere in abandoned wells or other storage facilities. The second problem is the gas in those fractures may go into the groundwater. They say that it doesn't, but we've seen on the media where residents are starting their wells on fire because of natural gas contamination. To this map, you can see from the map, the pin shows where Hoosick Falls is. You can see the small dots represent where CAFO permits are. The larger dots show where mineral and mine resources are. And if we zoom out, you can see this gold area is where the shale formations are, where fracking is taking place. And we zoom out a little bit further, and we can see that this is all up and down the Appalachian area. We can also see these polluting sources in the upper Midwest, and we can see them in the Great Plains area. The Appalachian area here, the upper Midwest, and the Great Plains area all have populations that have less than 22% of the residents having at least some college. These areas are also areas of high unemployment. You can see the average unemployment is 3.8 in these areas in the dark brown. Again, in the Appalachian Mountains, the upper Midwest, the Great Plains, you see large areas with up to and over 5.4% unemployment. Next map we look at is median household income. The median household income is $69,000. The areas in the darker purple, again in the Appalachian range, the upper Midwest, and the Great Plains are less than $32,100. And this is household income, the total household, less than $32,000. The areas in green, the upper ones, are only seen in the big cities, in Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, and the Eastern Seaboard. So you can see from the three maps the areas where we have potential contamination from CAFOs, from mining, from fracking, are all in the areas where we have lower education, lower income, and higher unemployment. But some of the people from Hoosick Falls have banded together to sue the Teflon companies for the decline in the value of their homes. You know, who's going to want to move to these areas when the water's contaminated? They're not going to be able to get the value of their homes back. And some of them, including Michael, are suing for medical testing expenses. Their hope is that through early detection of any cancers that they may develop, that they can treat them early and have a more positive outcome. If you would like to view this story map and play with the interactive maps yourself, you can find it here. This story map has been published and you can find it at this website. And thank you.